just like everybody knows, different areas of the country are different. They have a certain culture that's unique to that area, and it can be a larger geographic area. It can be very small, and I think fire culture is largely reflective of that in a lot of places. And there are differences for the way that fires happen there, but overall, I think fire is a physical and chemical reaction. It doesn't have feelings. It doesn't have emotions attached to it. What it does is it gives us an avenue to sometimes attach our own personal things to it, and we do that. So for some instances, I think I've been pretty fortunate that I've moved to a lot of different places and been on fires a lot of different places. So the Southeast, for example, that culture is different than a lot of other places in how they approach fire. Fire is very much looked at as a normal occurrence and a useful tool. I haven't really encountered a lot of places that are accepting of wildfire in the Southeast, but they're very accepting of prescribed fire, and they utilize it effectively as a tool. And I think that's a culture that goes back to the 16 and 1700s, and moving forward, a heavy agricultural part of our country, also timber production, but the timber there requires fire to maintain it more so than some other places, or at least at a higher frequency. So I think there was a recognition early on to use fire as a tool, and then that tradition and that culture is carried on. But it's not the same everywhere either. So for example, at one point in time, I found myself in northern Florida serving as a burn boss, and we were burning what was essentially a square unit. On the top end of it was a road, and there was additional federal land going that way. To what would have been the left side of it, as you were looking at it, was all private property, and they were very accepting of what we were about to do, which was put prescribed fire in there. Through the center was a large power transmission line that fed power to the community and continued on through the rest of the state. And to the right side of that block was private land holding. It's just they used it for, if I remember right, some reed production where they made baskets and stuff like that, but it was just basically open land. And then to the south was a major highway as well, and that we were going to burn that northern block that's cut off by the power line. And that was about 1,500 acres. We started off with, I believe, one dozer, one engine, and maybe like 10 people and a helicopter, and we were doing aerial ignition. And we got about half or 3/4 of the way through that, and the local fire management officer said he'd talked with the local agency administrator, and they wanted to get the next block done as well, but they wanted it done that day. And I said, okay, well, we don't have enough time. And he asked what would speed it up, and we had a discussion, and they essentially moved another helicopter over to us, and we just continued on doing 2 helicopters at the same time. And they were used to working together, so there was a whole safety discussion and everything. And the interesting thing is the neighbors came out and they wanted to know if we would burn their property as well. So very accepting of that. Everything went very well.